Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my vacation beach home got demolished because I refused to join an incredibly corrupt and entitled homeowner association. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. This story is titled, Lost My Wife 3 years ago. I started dating again and my new girlfriend wants to visit my wife's grave. So I'm one of many who lost someone in that damn 2020 pandemic. She was my world and we had our future all set up. She wanted children too by 2021 and then she was gone. I felt I had lost all sense of purpose and after an agonizing year moved away, not too far, but not close either. I did not feel like I could breathe in that town. Still, every Saturday I get back and visit her resting place. I just functioned for about 2 years. I'm not depressed or anything like that, but I just functioned. Until I met who we will call Ada last year. We started talking and hanging out together. She can be a bit haughty with people she doesn't know well, but I was surprised to find out how sweet and kind she is under the eyes. She gave me something to look forward to again. She likes to do most of the talking herself, which is fine with me, because I never know what to say. She knows everything about my wife and this did not discourage her. She knows I'm doing therapy and that I'm still mourning, but she never left me alone. I asked her to tell me if anything I do or say makes her feel uncomfortable or like she's not a priority, and she said that as of now, I'm doing nothing of the sort. She knows what I do every Saturday morning and never objected to it. But today she said she would like to meet her, as in accompany me in visiting her grave. I feel conflicted about this. On the one hand, I respect and feel touched by her wish. On the other, it feels weird for a guy to take the new girlfriend where the first wife is buried. How should I approach this? Is it too soon? Should I ask her to wait for that? And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm curious. If you would be in this situation, what would you have done? Would you have taken your new girlfriend to your wife's grave? Let me know in the comments. Now we have an update to the story and it reads like this. I talked about this with my therapist. She feels that based on what she knows about Ada and the way she always behaved about this, that bringing her to my wife's grave will probably be a positive thing. I told Ada that if she feels like it, I would be glad to take her with me this Saturday. She was happy to hear this. She usually works on Saturday morning, but said she would take the morning off for me. I feel a bit of an emotion I cannot define about this, but I think it will be a good thing. And now another update to the post, some additional info and an update. Some Redditors and some people around us were worried that my relationship with Ada is just a rebound. I admit it's something that I too was worried about, and Ada told me she did not have long-lasting expectations at first. We began dating in April 2023, but as things progressed and she saw my intentions are serious and I'm committed, her doubts about me were gone. She says we were made of the same stuff, we are two loyal, committed and hardworking people, and she wants a future with me, and so do I. We are looking for a new place to share and I'm looking for the ring to make my proposal. I admit that one of my biggest concerns is that I don't want to take advantage of her goodwill, even unintentionally. Her kindness and patience are near infinite, but I told her I don't want our relationship to be all about my past. It would not be fair for her. She reassured me that she doesn't feel taken advantage of and that I do a lot to make her feel loved and appreciated for who she is, but at the same time, she recognizes this is a part of me she's willing to accept to be with me. To my surprise, everyone approves of us. My parents, Ada's parents and my late wife's mother. We never got any backlash. Onto the update, I talked about this with my therapist. She feels that based on what she knows about Ada and the way she always behaved about this, that bringing her to my wife's grave will probably be a positive thing. So I told Ada that if she feels like it, I would be glad to take her with me this Saturday. She was happy to hear this. She usually works on Saturday mornings, but she said she would take the morning off for me. However, I had unexpected things come up for tomorrow. I have to cover for a sick coworker, which means I'll be taken all morning and great part of the afternoon. It happens, and when it happens I either go on Friday or Sunday. I decided to go this afternoon. We're in Europe, it's evening here, and I asked Ada if she wanted to come along and she readily agreed. We did not talk much during the drive, and when we arrived we made our way to my wife's tombstone and I just said, well, here she is. I fetched the water for the flowers and started my usual routine. Ada just crouched as if to examine it, and then she just helped me with the caretaking routine, removing the dead leaves and flowers and cleaning the picture and the light. We then took a walk around the cemetery. Might sound weird, but it's not unusual here as many cemeteries double as parks here, and then sat outside for a smoke before the drive back. We talked a bit and Ada, who's quite the stoic, got a little emotional. She was happy that I had let her in on such what for me is a particularly intimate and sacred place, but also shaken because after all the talking we had done of my late wife, she subconsciously thought of her as someone she would want to meet and be friends with, but seeing the grave reminded and cemented the fact that this amazing woman is gone. It was a bit of a shaking for me too, seeing her tearing up, since she's the most stoic woman I've ever met, but also made me think how this woman is a rare gem. I don't doubt that in different circumstances my late wife and Ada would have been great friends. And I'm a very lucky guy for finding not one, but two amazing women which gave and still give my life meaning every day. And yeah, Ripe Stars, please let me know in the comments what you think about these kinds of stories, because I wouldn't say they're essentially just feel-good stories, but I think they are also thought-provoking and just different than the usual ones. I think every once in a while stories like these are pretty interesting. Either way, the next one is the title story. So when I was younger, my family would go on regular vacations to the beach. We had a vacation home very close to a beach, and so many of the summers of my youth were spent there. I have so many memories of bringing close friends along or having cousins visit partway through. That's not even mentioning the memories I have with just my family. Memories of hunting down crabs late at night with my siblings when we were supposed to be in bed, or of enjoying each other's quiet presence while gathered on the patio. Of course, as people get older, life gets in the way, whether it be other trips that interrupted the summer or a relationship that kept one of the siblings back at home with civilization. There came a point when it was rare for the entire family to spend the whole summer there, especially with the advent of the internet and mobile phones, which the beach house was definitely not outfitted for in the early days. As college came and went for me and my siblings, rare became non-existent. I still was always the sibling that cherished the time there the most, I think. I did not let anything just pull me away from there, and when I did, I often still spent stretches of time there. I married in 2011 and my parents let me do what I wished to with the house. If us spending less and less time there as a family was not enough, the introduction of more residential areas and the invasion of trinket shops and novelty restaurants was killing their desire to go back every summer. My first goal was to update the house. Regardless of everyone else falling out of love with the place, it still held so much beauty and value from my youth that I wouldn't give up on it. Renovations and the introduction of all the new technologies made it quite the modern vacation house. The chaos of vacationers and tourists was around us, but we had a bubble of protection to focus on the beach, since none of the property directly adjacent to the house had been bought yet. The first summer that it was entirely renovated, I managed to get all of my family to give up a week of their summer to come and spend the time remembering what it was like back then. It was already one of the best weeks of my adult life, but it all became even more cherished in my memory when my parents died about a year later, and it became the last memory me and my siblings had all together without the shadow of their funeral hanging over us. I inherited the house since it had been everything but legally mine up until now. Me and the family spent a few summers there before it started to get increasingly hard to spend the whole summer away from work and other such things. So we started spending a few weeks there and renting it out the rest of the vacation season. The house had gone through a long journey to reach its current state, and the final step to take away any illusion of it being a haven from the modern world came when adjacent properties were finally bought. Though the house hardly made it through the next year before I would find it as rubble, but that's getting ahead of myself. So basically, we were approached about selling the home when the neighboring properties were bought. I did not take the offer, but that would not be the last time they approached me with a desire for some stake in my property, and actually it was the most respectful that they would be. The people who bought the property put a housing development there. I had already refused to let them purchase my property, but they didn't see anything stopping them from approaching me to ask if I would join their HOA that was gonna manage the new neighborhood. For this request, they had to track me down to my primary household, even though it was one of the most beautiful weeks of vacation season in years. This was because the last thing I like to have in my vacation is construction noises throughout the day. They were rush building the properties, which meant that just next to my peaceful home, I had contractors like a colony of ants clambering over the neighborhood. I did not even attempt to rent it out that summer, it was so bad. The next summer, construction was completed. They had approached me multiple times already since their first offer to buy my property, but it took to a new level when me and my family went to spend a month out there. I had someone at my door 3 or 4 times a week showing me a new clause in the HOA contract or a miracle story of how HOAs have helped them in the past. We went to spend a month out there but went home after just 3 weeks when I figured I was 1 or 2 visits away from punching the next HOA rep that showed up at my door. I notified the HOA that I'd be renting out the property and thus they should avoid the renters as they wouldn't have any say in whether the house joins the HOA. Of course, they did not listen to this and harassed my first tenant and then scared off the second 2 days in, so I decided I just didn't need to rent it out anymore. I was not done with the HOA though. As soon as I could get enough time to travel down there, I went and sat down with one of the HOA higher-ups that was willing to do so. I discussed the harassment and destruction of peace in my vacation home, and they seemed genuinely apologetic. They claimed that it would all stop and he only regrets that I hadn't gone to him before vacation season was nearly over. Honestly, I was so relieved. It finally seemed the nightmare was ending and that I would get my family vacation home so full of memories back. Officially, vacation season was coming to an end, but plenty of people were still traveling. I had a request to rent the vacation home, and I was more than willing to go for it, if only as a bit of a test run for if the HOA was actually legitimately backing down. The renters had a great week of vacation, then I received a warning followed by a fine in the mail. In the warning and fine were snippets of the HOA contract that defined that all renting of properties in the HOA had to be done through coordination and approvals by the HOA. And well, I have refused the HOA on every approach to try to get me to join them, and now they simply act as if I am obliged to follow their rules. So I tucked the fine away in a drawer and forgot about it so I don't have to get pissed about it. I figure it doesn't have any legal basis anyway. I try to treat everything as if it has gone back to normal over the next year into the next vacation season. I even stayed there with the family a few weeks and rented out the rest of the season. The fines continued to pile up long before vacation season came around. Fines for my gutters not matching the regulation and my patio not having proper safety features. Fines for the house being too quiet and empty when I was not using it, and fines for it being too rowdy when I did use it or rent it out. By the time my wife found the true extent of the issues, the fines had grown to a truly absurd amount. My wife had seen a few of them as they came in, but figured I had it handled because I had complained enough in the early days about just how annoying this HOA was. When she saw just how many I had set to the side in hopes they would vanish, she gave me a lecture. I contacted my lawyer and discussed the legality of the fines, and he agreed that without them having any proof of me joining the HOA, these fines would not hold up if I challenged them. This was then combined with the fact that in that coming off season, the fines slowed down to a trickle and then stopped entirely. Vacation season came around again and I thought I had won a war of attrition. When I went back to ensure the home was in a good state for renting out, I realized my mistake. The plot was empty. The only remnants of the house were the foundation and the lack of established plant life where the walls had stood. My house and all the memories it had represented for me were ripped away in a cruel act of spiteful arrogance. I had already discussed it with my lawyer and I moved forward with suing the HOA. When we approached them, they initially claimed that they had every right to demolish my beach house to take the property and reclaim the overdue fines that I didn't pay. My blood was boiling at that point, but I let my lawyer take it to the courtroom instead of me doing something to try to get myself arrested. We were in court off and on for the next 18 months, the first 10 of which it was impossible to even get the president of the HOA to show up in court. When we finally did, I was shocked to find out it was one of my siblings, my youngest sister, who I knew had gotten into real estate investing and stuff but didn't keep up with her because she distanced herself from the family after my parents died. It came out in the following months that she had overstepped so heavily because of her resentment that I had gotten full ownership of the vacation house. I was shocked because she was at the reading of the will and had been one of the family members who freely gave up a stake in the house to me. Apparently she blamed me for all of this, and when the court ruled in my favor, she finally came to me and told me her biggest regret is that she let the home with so many memories become collateral damage in her tirade. If the ruling itself was not enough, the fact that the HOA had to pay all the legal fees for the long battle with no return on that investment did plenty to bankrupt them. My sister had perpetrated much of the misinformation that led to the fines and had even held back the notification of demolition which the HOA was legally required to send me. All of this meant that the HOA was disbanded and scattered to the wind, but my sister was completely discredited and left destitute from the fines. I could have pressed charges for some jail time, but I didn't think that would do anything to help. She would already be rebuilding from scratch and the family knew what she did, so they wouldn't be helping her without serious reparations. I decided to leave her and my anger at the situation behind and use the money from the lawsuit to find a new way to honor my parents and enhance my relationship with my family. I have not quite figured it out yet, but I've got some path that I'm pursuing. And yeah, Ripe Stars, honestly, I would say that the sister got off pretty lightly here, and if you would have been in that situation, what would you have done to your own sister if she did this to you? Would you have insisted on her maybe going to jail or even prison? Let me know in the comments. And the next story is titled Satisfying Revenge. A little backstory first. My older brother adopted me when I was 14. I lived with him, his wife and her 2 children, one a couple months older than me, the other one a year older. I've never gotten along with the younger one. His mother and father went through a divorce and both parents spoiled the hell out of him. His father owned several businesses, making around $1 million a year, so he's your typical entitled douchebag who has always clashed with me, someone who grew up poor. That's the type of dude that kicked the dog we all raised from a 4-week-old puppy because she was excited to see him after not seeing him for 6 months and she was jumping around. He's the type of dude that has ruined Thanksgiving because the milk was 2% instead of 1 by screaming, yelling and cussing everyone out. At the age of 29. Now on to the story. I was on a phone plan with his mother, but I lost my job, unable to pay the last $60 I owe her, but we had worked it out that I would pay her back on Thanksgiving by installing a stereo, my brother's, her husband's, new pickup. A little over a week ago, I was picking up Fallout 4 for a friend who was at work at the GameStop in the local mall. Nephew works across the little walkway and saw me walk in from outside where he was walking into work. While I am in the line, he comes in, cuts in front of everyone and cusses me out, saying I should not be buying games when I owe his mom money. I told him he needed to back the hell off and not talk about anything he knew nothing about. He kept going on and on, running his mouth. I got my friend's game and walked out with him, following me out the door. When I got to the door, he stopped ranting and went back to work with a smug look on his face. I lived with this guy for years, so I know him very well. When I hopped in my car, I realized he had parked in front of me and my dash cam was on. He sells weed out of his truck to subsidize his low wages at the mall, and I remembered that he always showed up to work early to do so. I rewound my dash cam and sure enough, you could clearly see him sell weed. I sent an email with the video of him selling the weed to the management of the mall from a new email address as a concerned citizen. 3 days later, while talking to my brother, he told me that my nephew got fired from his job and banned from the mall property. My response, that sucks. Enjoy not getting that unemployment check, douchebag. And the next one is titled, Southern Revenge is the Best. My stepmother is the queen of Southern, bless your heart style backhanded kindness. She's petite with a cute little Southern accent and everything she says is so sweet if you take it at face value. My sister and I have tried to talk to our father about how mean she can be, but he says we are reading into it too much. A couple weeks ago, my husband and I hosted Passover with 11 adults and 2 kids. Passover is already a point of contention because she repeatedly, not so subtly, excluded my husband, who is not Jewish. She arrived an hour early without notice with 2 of my stepbrothers with intellectual disabilities to help. And also, she brought a gift, a wine glass that she made a point of indicating is decorated to be for the woman of the house. For context, by tradition, different family members bless certain things on the Sabbath and holidays and the husband blesses the wine. She and my father recently moved into a new house and their open house was last week. She forwarded me the invite she sent to her family a week earlier. It opened with a checklist starting with stepmom and dad move in, followed by all the great things in her kids' lives. And she suggested my husband and I come in between her family in the morning and her friends in the afternoon, so we would not feel overwhelmed. So my husband and I went with our dogs. No, we didn't tell her in advance, we just assumed she would be fine with it because she always says she loves them so much. We enter the house and her grandchildren shout, "Doggy!" and start rubbing bellies. She tried to suggest we leave them in her son's house across the street since it would be much easier on us. I kindly thanked her, but insisted it was no trouble at all. Then we gladly followed my father on a tour of the house, taking plenty of time in each and every room. She watched as her nice new house that all her friends were coming to ended up smelling like dogs, and she had to smile the whole time. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I am always a big fan of this Southern kindness, as OP calls it. Those stories are usually always very entertaining. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.